Hey beauties, and welcome back to Aesthetic Chat with Kiki. As you know, I'm your host, Kiana Gamble, and this is another episode of season 6. So we have Raquel on today, which I'm really excited to chat with her. We have not had a conversation before, and it's actually really cool because now with the podcast continuing to grow, I used to reach out to guests and get guests on that way, but now more recently, I've had more people reach out and ask to be a guest on the podcast, which is kind of cool. And so this is one of those episodes. Raquel's team reached out to me and asked if she could come on, and I'm really excited to hear kind of what information she has to share with everyone, which is exciting. Welcome, Raquel, to the podcast. We're excited to have you on, and everyone enjoy this episode. So let's just jump right in. So give everyone a little bit about background knowledge, kind of who you are, kind of what you've built, and kind of what has gotten you to this point today.
Yes. So my background is I've been in the aesthetics industry now, officially for about 15 years. I gained first my aesthetics license back in 2008 when I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then I moved back to Michigan, where our skin aesthetics is located now. And I was working for a chief of plastic surgery for a prominent hospital located here in Troy, Michigan. And I was hired at that point just to do skincare aesthetics from that type of treatment room. And he said to me, would you be interested in nursing? And I was like, I'm 38 years old. What am I going to do with nursing at this point in time? But I started thinking this is a lot of money and I might as well. I knew I loved medical aesthetics. So I went to nursing school and it was a wrap after that. I was involved in all three aspects of our company at that point in time, both doing facial treatments and then injectables. And then I was also working in our AAA-HC accredited OR at the time. So, and then after being with him for 13 years, I decided he was getting ready to retire. So I thought now's my opportunity I'm in my 50s and go on my own and create my own dream. So we are now two years here and we just finished. It was exciting. We got our certificate of occupancy yesterday. So for our expansion. So we
Exciting.
just added another 3 rooms totaling 2,000 square feet. So we're very excited about that.
Nice. That's super exciting. So clarify a little bit for me. So prior to kind of going into medicine, what were you doing just prior to that?
Yeah. So just prior to that, I was simply doing skincare, meaning your chemical peel, lasers, laser hair removal, microneedling, dermablading, and
Okay. So did you have
microdermabrasion.
your esthetician license then?
I did. Yeah,
Okay.
so I
Okay.
was a licensed esthetician, and that's what took me to that surgeon's medical day spa. And then I started, he was at what encouraged me to go on my path. Previous to that, though, because of course I am a little bit older, I worked for Clinique when I was 18. So I was also model of the year in 1992, and I was a makeup
Yeah.
artist and stylist. So I've kind of always been in the industry per se,
Yeah.
just in different roles and different levels.
Very cool. So how many years were you working in that role as esthetician prior to going back to school and kind of getting your RN and doing all of that?
So I was an esthetician for probably about a year. And then I got married really young and I didn't have a formal education. So I did do all of my gen eds. I did those in about a year and a half. I went all year round and then enrolled at that time. If you remember 2008 through 2010, we had the economic crisis, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
people, it was very challenging to even get into nursing school because everybody was looking for second careers. So I did the LPN route first, which is a licensed practical nurse. I after I got my gen eds, I then went to LPN school for 18 months. Once I had the nursing license to be able to start working, rotated out of the program for 1,000 hours and then segued back. So my associate degree actually took me almost like 3 years because I was working mom also, working full time, being a full time mom, and going to school full time. Then I gained my registered nurse's license. So by that time, if you wanted years, I was probably already 2.5 years
Yeah.
as a licensed esthetician before I became a registered nurse
Okay.
doing injectables. But
Yeah.
Also, a really key point is I was a medical assistant for the surgeon also. So I was observing and watching him inject and gaining that little extra edge. I mean, now the industry is so vastly different, but we didn't have a lot of the resources that are available. And again, I don't like to reference TikTok, but you can subscribe to injectors and physicians now on either social media or YouTube, and you can learn some techniques that were only available either by getting trained by a educator, which was typically a rep of one of the pharmaceutical companies, or you'd have to try to research and get a hardcover book that would tell you how to do things. So
Yes.
now I can just go on and I'm like, oh, okay, what's a new technique? And you can Google it and it pops up. But there wasn't that information then. So being a medical assistant really helped, gave me an extra advantage too.
100%. So, I mean, talk about persistence and just also you being a mom, going to school and going in with the intent with nursing, knowing that you want to stay in aesthetics. I think that more and more now you hear people that have that intention where they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to get into aesthetics. I'm going to go to nursing school. In the back of my mind, when I was in nursing school, I was like, that would be a really cool career. I think I'd be really good at it.
Yeah.
Eventually, maybe I'll do that. But when you were doing it at the time, like, aesthetic nursing wasn't really truly a full, well-known path. I think you'll be able to relate more with people now because they are doing that. So walk me through getting through all of the coursework, knowing that, we don't learn anything aesthetics related in
No.
traditional nursing paths. I just finished my DNP and there's no mention of anything like that.
Congratulations.
Thank
Yeah.
you. That program was a struggle in terms of, motivation and those types of things. But
Yeah.
walk me through kind of your thought process, mindset, and really being able to get through that coursework.
I think you raise a really valid point too, and I'm going to pick your brain about the DNP program because I'm
Yeah.
thinking about doing that now too. But it was actually for me, I felt an obstacle. I didn't share with my instructors that I worked for a plastic surgeon, right? I mean,
Mhm.
at the
Yeah.
time, I graduated in 2015. It wasn't really well favored, right? Like I wanted to be taken seriously and I didn't want them to think she's just going to be a Botox nurse. And again, it wasn't as prevalent then. Now I have a lot of young girls will reach out to me and they're like, I'm going to nursing school. I want to learn to inject. What can I do? Where I still think that you need that advantage of being in the hospital. I think that you learn, a lot. The patient care is important. Also, just knowing anatomy and how to take care of that patient, right? Because even though we're administering Botox, this is still medicine. I can't stress to people enough that I take everything that we do seriously, between HIPAA to your consents to full assessment, really looking at what are those contraindications that the patient may have also, and bringing that into the aesthetics room. So I think that you raise a really good point there.
Yeah. I can't imagine honestly where the industry is going. I don't want to say that they might take injecting away from
Yeah,
nurses,
right.
but to protect what I love to do, I was like, I have to go back.
Yeah,
Maybe you would be grandfathered in because of your experience and because you've been in the industry a long
right,
time.
right.
I was like, I will not be grandfathered in and I don't want to spend all this time, money, effort, and I just love what I do to have them be like, "You're not eligible to do that." So, it's just hard because with the people that are going from maybe they started as an esthetician and then they're like, "Yes, like, I eventually want to inject." So then they're gonna go do their prereqs and then they're gonna go to nursing school and then they're also gonna tack on the additional master's or doctorate. That's a lot of time committed to not perfecting your craft essentially. Like, you don't do anything aesthetics related in the traditional curriculum at all.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
But and I agree with you because I feel though that there is such a gray area, right?
Yeah.
And they're, I don't want to say reckless, but it's a little bit of a cowboy kind of field,
Oh, it's
that
like the
you're
Wild
there.
West.
It is like the wild, wild west. I
Yeah.
mean, and you've got people who are going rogue and doing things. Here in Michigan, we've had estheticians who are injecting. I mean, right
Yeah.
now, unfortunately, anybody, and I'm going to use this loosely, if you're a cobbler making shoes and you want to inject, and a medical director is willing to hang their license and allow you to buy product under their name and inject, legally you can do that, right? So
Yeah.
I do think that there should be some type of licensing that in the medical field. So whether you're an RN, a DNP, a PA, but I think that you do have to have a good sound grasp of medicine.
Yeah. I think I agree with you in saying that I do think hospital experience is super valuable. And I'm very curious to see how regulation continues to evolve.
Yes.
Because again, state by state, right now I'm located in Idaho and it's very, very similar. An esthetician can inject, a medical assistant could inject as long as someone is willing to say that they've trained them or take on some of that liability, right? It's just an interesting dynamic. And then you have certain states where they're trying to only allow physicians to inject. So we've got a huge spread of experience and allowance and those types of things. So it's very interesting where it's all headed. But I do want to ask you, I see that you have actually made quite a few posts on having to deal with the complications and like the aftermath of individuals going to unlicensed places or like places that are offering overseas product. And so I'd love for you to chat a little bit about like your experience on that and then some of the protocols that you have maybe developed when you're dealing with those types of
Yeah.
complications.
So good question. Especially coming from a plastics background. So I'm a certified aesthetic nurse as well in plastic surgery. And we have a high prevalence of silicone being injected illegally here, as well as some overseas products that are being shipped and injected, and people who are posing fraudulently as medical professionals to inject that product. And I feel like, again, I mean, Kiana, I'm sure you've seen it, but the DIY lady injecting the Botox to herself and telling people, I mean, like, it frightens me, right? And
Yeah.
I've dealt with those patients who come in crying. Now, of course, at the back of my brain, I'm thinking, but did you do your homework? Did you ask the questions, right? We have our rewards, right? We've got our alley or we've got our Aspire awards. So, did you see the package? These are questions that when you're going, you need to ask the physician or the injector or what it is that they're using and also the rationale behind. But unfortunately, they're consumers. They want to look pretty. They want to look Instagram, social media ready and walk out without putting some of the other, like researching the license or making sure that you're going to the right place. We see a lot of silicone here. And in my formative younger year, when a patient would come in, first of all, you have to learn how to recognize what silicone is, right? And the issue with, besides it shouldn't be in the body in an injectable form for aesthetic purposes, it will create those little like BBs, because what happens is scar tissue gets around, it's a foreign body and your body's trying to reject it. So it wants to protect itself and it creates that scar tissue around. And before, previously, I would think, okay, I can go in, I can inject, I can finesse that if they're starting to pop through the surface of the skin, and you can blend it. Doesn't happen that way. You just get lumpy, bumpy lips. So came to basically the resolution that I'm just not even going to take those patients anymore. I had the luxury of working in plastics facility that I would refer them to the plastic surgeon and then they would excise. They would cut the silicone out. The issue is that eventually your body keeps making that scar tissue and rejecting it. So you can get it excised. And then what happens is it'll look okay for a while, body heals, and then it just does the whole process, inflammatory rejection process all over again. So I will no longer touch patients who have silicone in their faces just because I'm not going to set myself up for failure. And then once you take on that patient, they now become your responsibility. So I refer them to a plastic surgeon or just say at this point, there's really nothing that I can do and chart on that. And that's the best answer that I can give you for that. I've seen cheek implants from Turkey or from other countries that they move and they actually flip. And again, I just refer them to a plastic surgeon for our practice.
Yeah. So wait, can you clarify originally? It sounds like you were actually trying to like blend at one point the silicone. So you took them on as a patient and then you actually started like injecting
Yeah, I would
dermal
use
filler trying to like
blend it to try to create a little bit
interesting.
more of a smoother, exterior appearance. And my heart breaks for them because they've sat in a chair and they're crying and they're like, I had no idea. They told me it was a Juvederm or a Galderma product. And I'm like, you have silicone. And it's heartbreaking as a provider to have to even, tell a patient that. But at the end of the day, it's just something that I don't want to even take on.
Yeah, how interesting. Because I'm gonna be honest, if I've come across some interesting things, but most of the time I'm just like, I'm not gonna touch that. My heart goes out to you, but this needs to be excised or whatever it is. So it's very interesting to hear that you've actually tried to do something
Yeah.
or improve it, and hearing don't. That's good for other people to hear.
I've been injecting now for about 14, 15 years. And I think as a provider, I'm starting to just be a little bit more selective. And it's okay from a business standpoint, as well as, again, it's our license, right? And if it's a complicated case or something that I don't think that I'm going to be able to solve, why would I put myself and the patient through undue and unnecessary pressure and set us both up for failure? Those unfortunate, I don't want to use the word botch, but those unfortunate situations, just refer out. It's okay to say no. It's also, I know this is a little bit of a different topic, but if it's going to be a complicated patient, we have the opportunity to tell our patients no.
Mhm. 100%. I think really if we're going to go into this conversation of screening your patients correctly and like
Yes.
deciding to take somebody on or not take somebody on, I think that a lot of that comes with experience and maybe you can speak a little bit on this, but I think that more and more there's a larger influx of people that are wanting to join this specialty. And I guess speak from it from a business owner standpoint, like when you're picking people to hire and to bring onto your
Yeah.
practice, how are you selecting candidates or what kind of trainings are you hoping that they have just to try to get into the industry in the safest way possible?
Yeah. So for me, my team has been with me. My medical assistant worked at the previous location for 28 years. So my
Wow.
medical assistant is very knowledge in medical aesthetics, being that she was an MA for the surgeon. So she would do the post-op as well as readying the patient for whatever treatment. So she's very, very knowledgeable. My other medical assistant, she came from orthopedics, but then she worked also at that previous location. So she was very heavily knowledgeable with pre-opping and post-opping. My injectors here, I mentored at the previous location and they decided when I was leaving to come with me. So because I had worked with them and one of them was already a nurse working at the hospital. The other one was going through her PA program. Amanda was my medical assistant. So she started out as a medical assistant for me. And then she said to me, hey, I love what you do. I love this industry. How could I get in it? And I said, you have a bachelor's in sports medicine. I said, just go back to school, do this accelerated nursing program. And when you graduate, I'll teach you everything I know, just like someone gave me the opportunity. So all of my nurses were brand new to the aesthetics industry. So here
Yeah.
we are 4 years later, they're developed, they're amazing. So when I started training them, one of the big mistakes that I really learned was the reps all came in very, very quickly and there was a barrage of information that was thrown at them, right? And they had too many trainings too quickly. So it was too much information at a rapid pace. And I felt as I sat back, it was a really good learning lesson for me because I'm looking to hire an injector now. And I don't particularly care if they have previous experience or if they come to me brand new because I don't mind molding, mentoring, and shaping. Sometimes that's a little easier than perhaps correcting some habits.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about them having a clientele. We'll be able to build them. That's not an issue. So I think that having too much knowledge thrown at you. Let's do the basics, right? And again, I'm sure with your practice, the biggest thing is assessment. And it's different than when you're assessing at the hospital, right? Because
Hmm.
aging is a diagnosis. So my medical director does the diagnosis, and then what we do is we help to formulate the treatment plan. And what we're treating is the symptoms of the aging process. So we try to go through it a little bit, systematically, just like, again, this is medicine. I can't stress that enough. I didn't ever push them. I'm not a numbers girl. I don't shoot for, we have to do this for profit. Even when I was at the other location, I want them to grow. I think everybody grows at their own pace, and however that looks for each individual, I think is important. And I just want to nurture who they are so that they can be the best injector possible. And it's not a speed thing. I can't say enough. It's more of that marathon. It's not a sprint, right? Because, and I'm sure you experience it, that if somebody comes in and they're like, I don't want to deal with sick people, I want to make everybody look pretty. Well, okay, but we're in a concierge profession. A sick person, they just want to feel good and they want to go home. We're here to not only make people feel physically better about their appearance, but oftentimes that physical is connected with the psychological. So there's
Hmm.
sometimes a lot more going on here than what's going on physically. So, I mean, I had one patient one time, she had this terrible scar on her forehead. Father had dropped her when she was 2 years old, and it led to a whole, I won't get into it, but a whole nother psychological thing of just abandonment, rejection, and insecurity. And when we fixed that scar between microneedling, PRP, Botox, and filler, she was crying. She was like, every time I looked at that scar, I was just reminded of this trauma, and it's gone. So our industry is a little deeper than what it just is superficially, as I'm sure you can
Hmm.
attest. And you have to put on a different medical hat.
Yeah, I think what people don't maybe understand too is like you're balancing different expectations when you're in a cash pay
So, yes.
environment. And like the assessment portion and being able to deliver a really great consultation is a different beast in itself when it comes to what we do. It is an art in itself, but there's a lot of science components to it. I love the complexity, but also it's not a copy and paste for everyone. So each
Yeah.
person's going to mean something different. And the nuances of that is what I find to be really exciting, and nothing's ever the same. But for somebody starting out, it is like drinking through a fire hose. And so, my next question for you, when you are training these injectors in your practice, are you having them start on like multiple modalities? Or maybe they just start with like a neuromodulator, wrinkle relaxer, and they get really good at that. And then they like kind of graduate in a sense to kind of other treatments? Or are you just like giving them 5 to 6 things and you're like, figure it out?
Yeah, that's a really good. I'm starting a little bit of an education, our Skin Academy, and we just had our first class today. And I had a physician, she's an ER physician, as well as another nurse who's an ICU nurse. And they were here on the training today. And I said to them, here's the deal. Take one thing and be good at it, right? I don't want to set people up for failure. I think when you throw, and that circles back to what I learned when the injectors were originally taught, is it was like, okay, we're going to do neuromodulator, and then you're going to throw in Botox, you're going to throw in Dysport. Okay, well, we've got a different conversion rate, right? I mean, it's 3 to 1, all of that. So you have to learn the product. You have to learn how the product disperses underneath the skin, what product might be better for what patient. It was a whole ball of wax of like they were sinking. And again, because it wasn't my business, I could throw a lifeline, but they were already then learning filler in my experience. And again, everybody wants to do everything, right? But why do we have specialized medicine? Why do you go to a cardiologist for heart? It's specialized medicine. So in order to be good at something, it's that 10,000 hour rule, right? Now, I'm not saying you have to inject Botox for 10,000 hours, but it's not just the actual technique of injecting the patient. It's again going through the whole process. It's learning to assess the patient, it's learning to treat them, it's learning that follow up. Because one of the other things that I don't know how you feel about it, Kiana, but it's very frustrating for me is this industry, people are like, oh, I can make so much money in it. It's not a money grab. We're still nurses or doctors or medical professionals. Our first point of care is supposed to be the patient's well-being, right? So that well-being doesn't end the minute that they walk out the door, because as later, if you get into a filler and stuff, you could have vascular occlusions or complications or other issues. But strictly for intent and purpose, let's just talk about neuromodulators. It's getting that patient to come back possibly 2 weeks later, especially if you're first learning, right?
Mhm.
Because everybody's anatomy, it's not cookie cutter. When I just learned treatment, it was your 5 standard injection points, right? And then you
Yeah.
hope you didn't miss any other area. And people are walking around with Spock brows and everything else, right?
Yeah.
Now we know that we can inject multiple different areas, different depths, all of that. So, especially in the beginning when you're first learning, it's important, I think, to bring that patient back. And I don't even give them an option, especially if they're a new patient. I just bring them back 2 weeks later.
There's no option. Like, you're booking a follow-up,
Right. You book a
you know?
follow, but also because why? We're building a relationship with the patient too by
Yeah.
doing that, right? And you care. Obviously, I mean, you care. So come on back. Let me see you. If you need a little tweak, I'm here. I want to make you happy, because that's also the key point. Happy. You want repeat business. You want to build that trust. So you get that patient, they come back 2 weeks later, and then you reassess. And if you're a new injector, it also gives you an opportunity to say, oh, hey, I missed a spot. Or I could go superior to that brow and fix that little golden arch there. Right. So,
Yeah.
and when there's a complication, and when I say complication, that doesn't mean that it's a major issue, but a complication of maybe the brow is a little lower on one side, or you have to do an adjustment. You also have to learn how to handle the situation, the patient being disappointed, the patient being frustrated, the patient not being satisfied, because satisfaction is going to bring retention also, right? So those are the key points that I stress to my new injectors of, listen, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to have that patient come back and deal with situations.
Yeah. 100%. I think so. A lot of points that you make, I agree with. When I started out, I only did wrinkle relaxer for probably about a year, because there's so many different things in aesthetics and everything is really exciting. And I want people to continue to have that excitement, but
Yeah.
like slowing it down, because even with that one treatment, right? I think that people take that one course and they think, oh my gosh, this is so easy. There are a lot of nuances. And to be really great at wrinkle relaxer, it's an art, and that you have to
It's an
learn all of
art.
those things, and it can be the most challenging thing. And so, yeah, I just, with all the different things coming out, even when we say like honing in on injectables, picking one specific thing to focus on, because at the rate at which things are coming out now, even within injectables, that's so many different types of injectables. And
Right,
so I
they're
can
coming out
imagine.
just when you get comfortable with something there, I'm like, there's gonna be another neurotoxin, there's another new filler out, and learning,
Yeah.
because that's the other thing. They come out, you get on the bandwagon, and then you learn, oh, that just wasn't an optimal result for the area that, we could use it on, right?
Results, it's not easy. And I think that that's the one thing is like people think it's really easy. And like even go from MA to RN and now like owning the practice. I feel like you've worn many different hats, and I feel like that has to have really translated into kind of the success of your business now, which is really cool. I don't want to say very few people can attest to that, but there aren't as many people that have all of those different experiences like you do.
Yeah, just even learning to be a medical assistant, I had to learn how to draw up the product and organization, prior planning, preventing poor performance. My tray is always, I'm very neat and tidy because I worked for a surgeon. So it's
Yeah.
like I'm cleaning up as he's, doing the treatments and everything. So I do think, and again, I implement that with my team, and they're all so talented and amazing. And I even learn from them, which is because of all these different techniques. And they'll message me, hey Raquel, what do you think about this? And I'm like, wow, I hadn't even thought about that. That's a great idea. Let's try it. Let's practice it. So, and then we're very big with our education here. I have amazing reps. And again, I think, like you mentioned earlier, you don't do a cookie cutter. Everybody's different, right? Some people learn faster. Some people, they move a little more slower and a little more cautious. And so we just gear our practice to each individual injector and provider and what they're comfortable with. So when we started getting into filler, it was like, okay, let's just start with lips, get comfortable with lips. That may look like 3 to 6 months of you just doing lips. It may be 3 months to a year. After you feel comfortable enough and you've had enough, then okay, you want to do nasolabial folds. Let's get an educator. Or I will take a day and we'll have an admin day and I just sit and I work with the girls on whatever it is that they want to work on. Or I'm continuously always trying to keep myself educated also because like you mentioned, Kiana, the industry is just, it's rapid fire right now.
Yeah. So my question for you is how how are you seeking out trainings and kind of where are you going to get some of your information to stay up to date? Because when you started in this industry, there weren't a lot of trainings, but now we're in that era where everybody has a training course.
Yeah.
Everyone has a Patreon. There's so much knowledge. How do you weed out what's good and valuable and worth your time? What is your approach when it comes to finding trainings and staying up to date?
We do like to attend the advanced trainings and conferences, regularly investing in those, whether I have to do out of pocket. Again, I have amazing reps that, they will bring in an educator here and help us with product, which is definitely helpful and beneficial. So, I also have some nice collaborators around here, other injectors who are willing to not gatekeep where we can get together and whether we inject one another or we just do a think tank and kind of bounce ideas off of one another. I think there's a lot of competition in the industry. And I feel like at moments, like you said, with that gatekeeping, that I believe in sharing knowledge. I think if we had more unity in the community, we'd all be a little bit smarter and a little stronger for it. We've got two other, I guess, injectable practices here in my building. And even my landlord had come to me and was like, "Are you okay with this?" And I'm like, "I don't care. There's a McDonald's, there's a Burger King, and there's a Taco Bell all in separate corners, right? If they don't come to me and they want to go to somebody else, they bring something else to the table. That's okay." So I guess doing your research, looking for who is keeping up, who has evidence based practice, not social media or an influencer, right? I mean, anybody can look great with a script and a phone. I want to know what you're doing every single day. And again, what is that evidence based practice behind it? So I think just again, being an educated consumer and injector, looking for what is going to benefit you. I have weaknesses that I still need to strengthen, looking for someone who can do that.
Yeah. Any favorite trainings or conferences that you've attended within the last 2 years?
Aesthetics Next was pretty good. I did a
Okay.
cadaver course at Aesthetics Next with Dr. Bloom, who he's amazing and he's a great resource if I need to reach out. Locally, we have Dr. Boyd is a major trainer and educator, so he's a resource here. But in terms of have I really been wowed? I can't say that I have, but that also could be because I've been pretty much enmeshed in growing our own business here. So
Yeah.
I need to now start carving out some time to do some. I felt so refreshed after meeting Dr. Doan and getting some knowledge from her. She's remarkable. I'd like to take another course with her.
No, that's why I always ask my guests because I was in the DNP program 3 years full time. And, before that, I was trying to do trainings kind of quarterly. I was able to do like one training a year throughout
Yes.
schooling, but I'm like now at the point where I'm like, okay, like I want to jump back in, and I'm figuring out kind of who should be on the radar. Because I did Dawn's training about 2 years ago, and that I would say that really changed my practice. And so always have great things to say about her. But since I went, I know that it's changed a little bit. Like when I went, there was only two of us, so I can't actually speak on her training
Okay.
currently. But I had an amazing experience, and she's been really instrumental in kind of me building my practice after I left the previous ones.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of conferences that are going on. I just don't know any specific ones that would really give me that wow factor. I feel like I could use a full day of business and not just the like answering the phones, running the front desk, but like really good, solid business plans that would kind of benefit us, as well as a good, like hands-on didactic day. So I don't know. Maybe I'm not looking
Yeah.
hard enough.
I don't know. I have only been to one or two conferences and I didn't love it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm open to trying one more, maybe two more if someone was like, "This is amazing, go." I would try it, but I was like, "I don't know if I'm getting that much out of it." It felt more of like a who's who and Instagram-y.
Well, so, ah, yeah. I mean, but that goes back to that influencer thing, right? And
Yeah.
then nothing against the pharmaceutical companies because I'm happy they're in business and they're providing us product. But I also feel like if you're specifically an educator for a certain company, right, you're going to push their products. And again, there's nothing, I mean, everybody's got to have their business bottom line. But I feel that here at Our Skin, our portfolio is broad. I am not specific to one particular company because I
Me
feel that
either.
somebody might come in and maybe I need Sculptra for them, but maybe I need Radiesse for them. Maybe I need Rustling Kiss for a younger girl, but the older patient needs a little border restructuring with a little bit of rusty L and then a little volume and glossing in the center. So I mix and match my products in order to achieve an overall look. I'm sure to my rep, they would like me to all be for one company or another, but I just don't think it's one stop shopping. I like to have a broad portfolio to better serve my patient for their ultimate goal.
Yeah, I customize things completely as well. Like, there's not a one size fits all, and I definitely don't align myself with one specific brand because, again, I think that each patient is unique and you can't just
That's why you're
stick
good.
that in everyone. So that's my biggest thing.
Yes.
So I only have two questions left for you if you have time. So the
Yeah, yeah,
first
yeah.
question being, you're leading a team, and it sounds like you have great staff retention. So
Yeah.
walk us through your leadership style and kind of your approach when it comes to leading a team, because I think the biggest thing is we see a lot of turnover within this space as well with staff, and then you see sometimes injectors that do, leave a practice and go open their own. So how do you really focus on retaining staff?
Yeah, so we kind of have a transformational leadership style here. I don't micromanage my employees. I want to give them autonomy. I need to be able to trust you, right? And they need
Yeah.
to be able to trust me. I have an open door policy here. If you have any questions or concerns, you can come to me, you can approach me, we can go get a glass of wine, a cup of coffee, or we can sit in my office, whatever. I mean, we're all truly friends. We are a family. It's important our dynamics, if we're not laughing or pulling out our hair on a crazy day, I think that that's really important with staff retention. I think it starts with management, so that would be me in my position. But also, I wouldn't be where I am without my team. Our Skin, I can still inject, but Our Skin is the whole experience from walking in and seeing my patient coordinator, Kayla, booking the appointment, Alicia, who's a flex medical assistant as well as front desk person. And having the medical assistant does help expedite my day by having it more organized. So when we first came over here, even though I had worked with everybody, we did a personality test and I took one as well. And then we sat and we said, oh, here's our strengths, here's our weaknesses. And I think you have to be adaptable also, right? Like you have to be able to adapt your personality style to whoever you're dealing with as well. So I'm hoping everybody wants to be with us as long as they want, but I also did not do a non-compete because my belief is if you don't want to be here, I don't want you here. I don't want you under duress. I don't want you coming in cranky or unhappy because we are here to treat patients and make them happy. It's Disneyland here every single day. So, nobody else cares that we're having bad days. It's about you the minute you walk through the door. So, and we've been doing that for 2.5 years. Like I said, I've been with my esthetician. She hired me when I was at my previous location. And now she's here. And so the longstanding relationships are 15 years to the shortest relationship is 5. We're looking to hire. I'm looking at another medical assistant and another esthetician. And I think for a business owner, the key is to hire slowly, but if it doesn't work out, fire fast, because all it takes is one bad apple to ruin the whole bunch. And it's like cancer, it can spread quickly. And I'm very protective of our bubble. And so you come in, we'll do an interview, then you do a shadow, then you shadow as a medical assistant, you shadow also then as my assistant. However, it can go wrong. And I think some of those key is missing the red flags. Like when you're doing a job interview, ask that potential candidate, how do you plan on exiting your current position? Because this was new to me. I just made this error. And if they say, I'm going to be respectful and give 2 weeks, if that's okay with you, I'd be like, ooh. But if they say, oh, I'm not even going to tell the employer, I'm just going to leave. Well, then what does that show? A lack of work ethic, right? Lack of responsibility,
Yeah.
because I don't want you just to not show up here one day. So it's digging a little deeper, looking at references, asking those direct, specific questions. What is the work ethic? And what is the professionalism that goes along with it? So important things, right? As a business owner.
I actually haven't heard that question. I think that that's really great, is asking, how do you plan on leaving your current job? So I really like that one.
Wish I would have asked,
Yeah,
because I
I think
got
that's
the answer
cool.
afterwards. And I was like, oh, but it really kind of like made sense.
Yeah, I actually really love that piece. I think that it's something to be said if you've been working with, your team for this long and that, your newest employee is, 4 or 5 years out. That's amazing. So I think there's something to be said about the type of leadership and like the type of culture that you have created within your business just listening to you speak today. Last question for you is,
Yeah.
leave the listeners with any advice. This can be whatever you want to leave. It could be an injecting advice. It could be from a business owner lens. It could be really anything. But what kind of a big takeaway do you want people to take from your conversation today?
You know what I think is huge is in a social media instant gratification world is be authentic. Be authentic. Be real. I mean, we're not perfect. The patient isn't perfect, and also letting that patient know, as well as your team around you, that you actually care. Be a good listener. I think people want to have something to say all the time. And I think that there's nothing wrong with sitting back and listening and being mindful before whatever your next action. So not reactionary, but very mindful. And again, being authentic.
Great advice. So tell everyone where they can find you if they want to reach out with any other questions, come
Yeah.
to your training facility, or visit your practice.
Yes. So we're located in Birmingham, Michigan. That's about 25 minutes north of Detroit. And we have parking. So that's a big thing. Being in Birmingham, people are like, oh my God, I don't want to have to worry about meters. We have an actual parking lot.
And then where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, so social media is Our Skin Aesthetics. And then I have my personal one, which is Our Skin Admission. Our website is Our Skin. And we've got our link tree on both program handles too.
All right, beauties. And that was a wrap on this episode. Thank you again, Raquel, for coming on the podcast today. It was such a fun time to chat with you. I feel like I learned a lot about kind of who you are and your approach to aesthetics, which is really great. I am excited for you guys to continue to listen on. We only have a couple more episodes left of season 6. Please reach out if you have any guest recommendations, questions for guests, or recommendations for me. I love the feedback. All right. So you know where to find the podcast. It is at aesthetic.chat with Kiki. My Instagram is at aestheticnurse.kiki. And then our website is aestheticnursekiki.com. But until next time, beauties, bye.